office, then I'd love my Sears something, Jack.
You guys are all on tonight until I remember to transfer.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a heads up next time, and then we'll get it. Yeah, you guys are pretty consistent.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local governments. Alamance County is pleased to present the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting.
Call the meeting to order. Looks like I have the privileges tonight, so if everyone would just bow your heads, please. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be present with all the citizens, both in person and or on video. We thank you for the privilege of the 5 commissioners for being able to serve our citizens and you. We ask that you keep our meeting in your mind and have us perform what you feel is best for this county. We pray this in Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is the motion for approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, public comments. Rudolph Castini. That's close.
Close enough. Cartesi.
Fantastic. Sorry.
How are you? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
My name's Ralph Cartassi. I live at 207 East Diller Street, Mebane, North Carolina. And I own Rad Industries and Rad Range. Good evening. I wanted to point out a few missing items from the last 2 meetings. Central Carolina Gun Club opens on Sundays at 9 a.m. as an outdoor range. They're also taxed as farmland, not a club like Rad is. Durham Rifle and Pistol Club opens up on Sundays at 10 a.m. It's also an outdoor range. They're also taxed as other structures, not as a club like Rad is. Rad Range now must open on Sundays at 12 noon, which is an outdoor range. Rad Range is taxed as a shooting club. I want to point out the unfair advantages my direct competitors have against Rad, not only in time of shooting, but also in taxes. As the owner of Rad Industries and Rad Range, we will honor the agreement the sheriff and I have talked about and not open until noon on Sundays. Rad will have RSOs on the range. I just want to state for the record that I'm against any ordinance that infringes on our Second Amendment rights, and this is going to be an infringement. If you want to make an ordinance about gun ranges, then let's follow Rad's example and lead in safety. Ranges must have staff when they're open to ensure that bullets don't leave the ranges. First aid kits must be provided in case something does happen, to include chest seals, tourniquets, and skin clips. All ranges must be taxed correctly. All ranges open on Sunday at noon to stop unfair advantages. All ranges must have guest and member tracking like Rad does, which is digital. We can tell you who's on the range, when they're on the range, what time they got there, and what time they leave. No other range in this county can do that. Finally, include protections for the county ranges. The ranges in place right now will be grandfathered from any new existing ordinances that may come after the county commissioners being here, to stop homes being built on top of us and stop people from exercising their right to shoot safely. Rad Industries and Rad Range wants to set the standard for safe shooting in Alamance County. We are the safest gun range in the Alamance County area, and we are the most popular. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Young.
Hurry all day. I apologize for the not so great color. Take one pass of not so great color printing of the map.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, sir.
There you go. Would you like one?
Sure. Well, yeah. I'm here too. It's okay. I get that a lot.
I printed it.
Let me just state, every speaker has 3 minutes, and it is time. Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate you letting me speak, Mr. Chairman, Board. My name is Jim Young, and I'm the president of Durham Pistol and Rifle Club. The club, the name is a little misleading because we've been in Alamance County since, I believe, 1976. They originally were Research Triangle Park was. and we know what happened there. So they were moved, and I've been fortunate enough to be the president for quite a while. And I just found out about this this new regulation and ordinance coming about, and I prepared a statement, and I just wanted to read from that. On behalf of the Durham Pistol and Rifle Club, respectfully request that the proposed ordinance regulating the discharge in firearms be tabled until such time that it can be determined whether or not there are existing county laws and regulations which, if enforced, would achieve the same objective. Or if there are not proposed regulations, they can be studied by all concerned parties and optimized to ensure it achieves the intended objective and does not result in unintended consequences that will be difficult, if not impossible, to undo. I'm going to save you from reading the rest of it. Durham Pistol and Rifle Club is a nonprofit shooting club. We've been around since it was established in 1946. We are not a competitor for anybody in this county. We don't do it for money. We have one of the finest ranges in the country. We don't we don't do it for profit. We have women's training. We have special forces, active duty special forces, and retired special forces. Probably every quarter coming down and do training. We have specialized gender-specific classes, basic classes, advanced classes, to advance and create more interest in the shooting sports and just competitions, etc. We are not competitors. We're not in it to make a buck. You know, there are some that are, but we are not. It was stated earlier that they have a way of tracking their members. We also track our members. We have video surveillance at every one of our ranges. Member walks by with their phone, they're picked up. We know where they went, and we do this not to spy on people. We do this so we know where the money for the membership needs to go, so we know what ranges need improvement, the berms built back up, anything like that. We also make it a point to purchase as much surrounding land as we can to increase our buffer around the community. And we do have a safety committee. Anything that we do on that range, the first thing it does is go to the safety committee and they check it out and make sure. I appreciate it.
And we
Thank you for letting me speak.
Salvation Coffee. Salvation Coffee. Salvation Coffee. Sugar-free hazelnut. I thought that was you. Thank you.
But if it helps.
I thought that was you.
Did anybody not get a copy?
I did.
I got two for some reason. You did not.
I did. Get a copy. I did.
This is it, right? That's it, right?
You welcome to it. Okay, Lisa Rowden.
Greetings. My name's Lisa Rowden. I live at 218 Woodlawn Road in Mebane. I am up here representing myself and a community group who, for the last 2 years, have been working pretty hard at trying to educate the public about the need for a public defender's office. I'm not here to ask anything. I'm not here to preach about anything. I'm here to thank each one of you and collectively for having this resolution on the ballot tonight. Our elected officials know that this is important. It's got to be done. It's, you know, if nothing else, it's for equal and just representation for everybody. But they can't do it without you guys' support. And you're going to talk about that tonight. And I am here for myself, for the folks who are working with me to try and make this happen, and the almost 1,000 people who have already signed our petition. The community is behind you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Avert. Avert. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Averett.
Okay.
I do have.
How you doing?
Good.
Really good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm on an entirely different topic tonight. My name is Lorraine Averett. I live at 501 Pebble Drive, Gibsonville. So several weeks ago, I received the new tax reevaluation on my property. I was stunned and shocked, to say the least. Few little things I need to share so we can get a picture. With the tax reevaluations and with the conversations that are here and will be coming with how the Alamance County Commissioners are going to adjust our tax rate, which is still not to be a piece of the puzzle that's not known yet. Just a little bit of background history on myself. Everybody's situation on these reevaluations, I've heard many opinions and thoughts from neighbors, people in other communities. Everybody has a different perspective on some of these tax reevaluations. So I'm going to speak to mine and how this is going to impact me. I did work for government services for about 38 years in my life. I'm 68 years old. 10 years ago, I had a larger house and land. I sold that. I wanted to downsize. I knew I was aging up and I was going to be facing retirement at around probably 64, 65 years old. I had to have property that I could manage, property that I could take care of. There's only me in my home. I did not want to come home and mow 2 acres of land and weed eat, spend the rest of my life working in the yard. And as I aged up, perhaps my health would slowly start that decline and that deterioration, as we know, some of us in here, maybe some of us not. So when I was around 55, 56 years old, I sold. I bought a smaller home in a small community in Gibsonville. It was something that I felt comfortable that I could afford and stay in and live in based on the price of the house, what the neighborhood looked like, and it's a fairly safe little neighborhood. And I made that decision along with looking at, as I aged up and projecting out slightly on what my retirement income would look like and what my Social Security income would look like. And I set my life up going forward based on that. Now, my tax value on my home when I purchased it was $128,000. I lived there 5 years, and all the exhibits are going to reflect that. I lived there 5 years. That tax value fell to $124,000. That's what I've been paying for the past 6 years. Now the reevaluation time has come. My house is now valued at close to $234,000. I went to sleep on December 31st and woke up January 1, unbeknownst to me, that I now own almost $250,000 home, which at the time when I purchased that home, I could not have even qualified for such a home. I know the 3 minutes is up, and I do truly apologize. I thank you for your time. I have met with the tax director. We are, going to be looking at the tax rate numbers for Alamance County and the town of Gibsonville. The one thing that I will say in closing in my sharing remarks is and I have an appeal in to the Equalization Board for review of what's went on with my property, particularly that is now 21 years old. I did not and do not qualify for the homestead.
I apologize. I'm going to have to get y'all.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I hope you take this into consideration. Everybody's circumstances are going to be different. I'm looking at the end of life. Some people are looking at the beginning of life, of building and growing. I'm looking at staying there. I hope I do not get placed out of my home. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
You should bring that topic up.
Katie
You
Fawcett.
don't get time to talk about it, so.
Good evening. My name is KD. I work for Rad Industries and Rad Range as an RSO. I served in the U.S. Army as an 11 Bravo infantryman. I know firearms very well, as long as firearm safety. I want to ask our RSOs that make sure customers that come to Rad Range are shooting safely. Customers shoot at a 20-degree downward angle into a berm that is over 30 feet tall on the pistol and 25 feet tall on the rifle. Rad Range has first aid kits and rules on range posted, and they are enforced by myself and RSOs, who are on ranges with the customers at all times. Rad Range is a range with digital check-in. We know who is on the range at all times. If you want to pass an ordinance on safety, first aid kit for shooting, and blood loss, RSOs must be there to make sure the people are safe. I ask to protect our range and our county. Thank you.
And we thank you. I'm gonna apologize for not pronouncing the last name. April is the first name. Would you come forward and
Yeah.
pronounce your,
Yeah, it's Couturier, but Campbell Couturier. I prefer to go by Campbell.
thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is April Campbell, and I come to you this evening with great concern. This is very off topic from the drag queen story hours that have been taking place across America and most recently in Forsyth County. That is too close for comfort for me and many other citizens, parents, and grandparents in Alamance County. I'm not making this personal or about anyone's life choices. Many parents have come to me with concern because of the effect this has on our children. It is sexualizing our children, confusing them, and possibly exposing our children to pedophilia. The books they read to the children are very inappropriate as well. These books can also be found in our school libraries. I've sent numerous emails to our school board about the books, but only one book has been removed so far. The rest of the list has been ignored. Forsyth County Commissioners approved this last event 3-2, and never once did anyone make the parents of these underage children aware of the event. In this event, a drag queen straddled a 14-year-old child dancing. Sad thing is, Forsyth County is welcoming back these same people on April the 23rd. In the event these shows must come to Alamance County, parents are respectfully asking that they be limited to groups 18 years and older, audience only. We're only trying to protect our children. And Tennessee recently adopted Senate Bill 3 by Governor Bill Lee, banning adult cabaret/drag show performances from taking place on public property or where children are present. I intend on trying to do the same for North Carolina. Thank you for your time.
And we thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Capps. I can pronounce your last name.
You can, you've got that. Paul Capps, 3259 North NC Highway 62. I'm not gonna take 3 minutes, I looked at your last meeting, I wasn't able to be here, but Ms. Thompson, you made a comment about the gun range, were there any houses gonna be built at the gun range? There is 35 homes right in line of the gun range to be built. I'm not in any kind of way gaining money by telling you that. I just know the people that own the property, and that's what they're planning on doing, 35 homes. And Mr. Carter, you talked about ricochets, bullets. I don't know for sure about steel targets they're gonna have at Rad Industries, but that is a ricochet problem also. And you talked about rocks. They have worked on the berms, but they just took dirt that was down on the ground, so there's rocks probably in those berms. So I don't know what the ordinance you're gonna talk about tonight, but just wanted to let you know to think about that, what it might be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now, and it looks like W.O.
Wolves, like more than one wolf.
Okay.
And I won't take 3 minutes either. I want to know about the taxes as well. I cannot figure out for the life of me how someone can just arbitrarily double property taxes. And on double wides, mobile homes, they depreciate. They do not appreciate. And there's a bunch of records on file from back in 2014 where we went through this before, and I got it adjusted because it was ridiculous. I've got a lot of damage to my house because I have dogs, and I had mice, and huskies and pit bulls both have a strong predator instinct, so they have torn holes in my walls. My central air went out in 2014, and I was using window air conditioners. And I want to know what justification and where they come up with this figure and how they came up with it, so we can get it corrected because there's no way you can double a person's property taxes, just apparently on a whim. I don't see any justification for doubling the property taxes like that, not at all. So I want to know how y'all come up with this. I'll come back later to find this information, but I want to see it in paper, in writing, so I can take it home and study it and figure out how we're going to correct this problem, because that's like saying, I'm going to cut your paycheck to a quarter of what it is, because I don't think it's worth the work you do. That's the effect of what you've done, about doubling the taxes. And that cannot stay, that cannot stand. That should be decided by all the citizens of this county, not some arbitrary group that we elected to do this. If that's how it's gonna work, then we need to make a change in this and maybe get some other people in this job. Thank you.
And we thank you. Let me remind everybody, there's a county commissioners comment period at the end of the meeting. And at that point, we can address some of these issues, but at this point in the meeting, we cannot. So I encourage you to sit around toward the end of the meeting and see if you can get some answers to various questions that have been posed here. Next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the consent agenda, agenda with the exception of the item 5D, EMS write-off request, and that we cover that in the presentation of other business as a 6A1.
I'll second that motion. Any other discussion on the removal of 5D?
No, but I just wanna ask, like the 5B1, the additional $321,600, is that to help cover for what we're gonna accept as a write-off?
No, it is not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm good.
All right. With the exception of 5D, which is EMS write-off request, correct?
Correct.
We have a motion and a second on approval of the consent agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Madam County Manager, I'm gonna move 5D to 6A, and then we'll bump everything else down.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes,
you did?
We did, yeah.
we did approve the agenda,
We
just
did
not
that
the
for
consent.
this week.
Okay.
We're good.
We're good.
All right. We are now moving to what was item 5D, which will now be just a sign letter and a number. Who is presenting 5D?
I can have our finance director answer questions, and I also have our EMS director prepared to answer questions. So
All right.
do you want us to introduce the item, or do you have specific questions you'd like us to hone in on?
Ms. Fawcett, why don't you present it initially, and
Absolutely.
then we can discuss it.
Absolutely. So Commissioners, before you tonight is a request for us to write off $1,556,054.32. And this is created from some ambulance EMS bills. We are able to carry those for a period of 3 years, after which they are deemed uncollectible due to our write-off policy. We have exhausted our efforts in trying to get those funds, and we are respectfully requesting that that be written off as an accepted accounting principle tonight. And
I
if
would
you,
indicate to everyone, both in audio land and in North Carolina has a 3-year statute of limitations on debts. And if you're unable to collect them within that time period, statutorily, those debts go away because the statute of limitations has now expired. Mr. Turner.
Just a few questions. How do these bills get generated to an individual who uses an EMS truck?
absolutely. And I will answer to the best of my ability, and then Ray, if you need to jump in, please do so. So we actually have a contract with EMS MC to provide our billing for our ambulance services. So when CCOM has dispatched an ambulance to a resident's house, there's automatically a fee for that. A lot of our patients are on Medicaid, Medicare, so we file those and receive reimbursement, as well as insurance companies that are reimbursing for patient costs, as well as if there's a car accident, the automobile insurance is responsible for that portion. What we're seeing here with these that we're requesting is that there are some of our citizens that do not have health insurance. And these are the ones that are the private pay. We have exhausted every avenue that we can to legally enforce collection. It's just we are not able to collect on these individuals.
If you have Medicare, do you balance bill the patient for what Medicare does not reimburse?
No, we can't balance bills. So Medicare does often charge, there's a copay, but we can only go up to the Medicare allowable. So even if the county charged way above the Medicare allowable, and right now we charge 130% of the Medicare allowable, you have to stop at what Medicare allows you to bill, and the rest has to be written.
How about third-party insurance?
So most third-party insurances will go up to 130 to 150% of what the Medicare allowable is. And each year Medicare publishes what the allowable is for EMS billing.
And what do we do to try and collect this? Do we do it ourselves in-house? Do we farm it out to a collections agency? How do we do that?
So we have a contracted billing company that we use, and they do all of the first pass billing, so the first 3 billing cycles. If they're unsuccessful, then we're contracted with a collection agency. And so they'll do 90 days of what we call soft collections, where it doesn't affect credit. Then it goes into harder collections. And then simultaneously, it goes into the North Carolina Debt Set-Off Program, which focuses on North Carolina tax returns and lottery winnings.
We have a sense of how good we've been over this past 3-year period as opposed to the 3-year period before that in collections.
We've seen an improvement in our cash collected over the last 3 fiscal years. Just in fiscal year 21, we collected $5.1 million. In fiscal year 22, we collected $5.4 million, and then we are on track this fiscal year to do $6.2 million.
Thank you.
It might be good to show a comparison of what we've had to write off in the past, because I know this, I don't know specifically how much we've written off in the past, but this doesn't sound that far out of sync with what I've seen in the past.
It's not.
A lot of people you can't collect from.
Are you seeing over the years that this is growing? Like, I mean, I think the first year I was on, it was way up.
Right. It ebbs and flows. I'll be quite honest, it ebbs and flows. This year was slightly higher than we had for write-offs last fiscal year, but I can get the board information on those figures.
Mr. Lashley, any questions?
No, I just want to make sure that, we try to do a really good job of keeping our finances legit, so to speak. And when you have things like this that, if you just don't take this into just one aspect of the whole thing, it has everything to do with the whole pie. If you look at how much the county is spending for the new EMS center, when you take that in consideration, the county's actually doing yeoman's work to try to provide this service, and yet here I am trying to keep taxes low, and this particular number is higher than a penny of tax receipts.
Right.
So this is costing the taxpayer 1 penny every single year. Just looking back at the numbers, I think I got these right. 2021, 5.1, and 2022, 5.4. I'm sorry. It's the money that you had collected.
Yes, sir. That's what we've collected.
What was the outstanding balance that you were shooting for? I'm just curious what your percentage is coming in.
So we collect approximately 72%.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
A lot of the uncollectible does come from private pay, so about 15% of the patients we transport don't have insurance.
Okay.
And the collection rate on that 15% is 5%. And that goes along with national averages.
So is there any, are there any, difference? Like, every time I hear siren, ambulance, fire, they all go. What about the ambulance that just, goes to a house? My father's having a heart attack, I need 911. Are there all different kinds every time they go to a call, with fire? is that part of this as well? I mean, it is, anytime they roll, right?
So if we transport the patient, or if we treat and then don't transport the patient, there is a charge. And it varies based on what's performed, and that's something that the billing company codes. But if we just go help someone off the floor and there's no medical complaint, then there's no charge for that.
And what if it goes to the detention center and has to
I
get
don't,
somewhere?
I don't believe we charge the sheriff's office. Because that bill, once they become a prisoner of the sheriff's office, I believe the sheriff's office is
So
responsible.
somebody's still paying for it?
Correct.
Okay. Do you see this like across counties?
Yes, ma'am. And you even see added to the problem, the high deductible private insurance plans. So if somebody's got a $5,000 deductible, they're on the hook for the first $5,000. So if we transport them and they haven't paid anything towards their insurance, in effect, they become private pay. And so it's hard to collect from those folks as well. So we collect anywhere as far as Medicare to about 98% of all of our Medicare gets paid. 70% for private insurance, and then all the way down to 5% for private pay.
But this is not Medicaid. Medicaid, or is it?
So Medicaid will pay whatever Medicaid, so Medicaid will only pay up to what they allow, and then you cannot balance bill, you can't do anything with Medicaid patients. So then that has to be written off.
So all this Medicaid expansion, you're gonna see money that will be part of that?
So
help to pay
that should decrease the amount of patients that are private pay and should therefore increase collections.
Is it,
At the same time, the number of calls are increasing, which is a bigger pie of
We-
calls that would
we have
that
seen
would
a
tend
mark-
to increase that number.
Yeah, for the first few years I was here, we averaged 1,500 transports a month, and now we're doing 1,650 a month. So we've definitely seen our transports go up.
I would think there's probably a lot of ODs, overdoses, and all this call, cause I pulled up on one when I was going to finish out an application. I met her
Absolutely.
on the gurney, getting into the bus.
Absolutely.
No insurance, no nothing. Okay.
Have we seen overdoses increasing in a greater percentage than the increase in number of transports?
It seems to have been pretty steady.
Steady?
Yeah. And that's one of those things that kind of ebbs and flows. You go through spells where you won't have many, and then you'll have a lot in one day.
Depends on when the bad dope gets in town. No, I'm not kidding.
I know.
Are there any other questions from this board?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are back on the regular agenda. Is that yours?
I'd be happy to introduce it,
Thank you.
Commissioners. At your last meeting, Commissioner Turner asked that we draft a resolution for the board's consideration tonight to support an additional district court judge and a public defender's office. So that resolution is included in your packet, and
Would you read the resolution, please?
Can we put it on the screen?
Oops, I pulled up the wrong thing. All right, read the whole thing? Resolution in support of an additional district court judge and public defender's office. Whereas Article 4 of the North Carolina Constitution provides that the North Carolina General Assembly shall divide the state into local districts for the holding of superior and district courts, and shall provide and preserve an efficient allocation of judicial resources. And whereas the last comprehensive reforms to the judicial and prosecutorial districts were made by the General Assembly in the 1960s, with only occasional piecemeal changes being made in the last 50 years, resulting in an unbalanced distribution of judicial resources. And whereas Alamance County's population has grown substantially in recent years, excuse me, and continues to grow, causing a significant and predictable increase in caseloads of Judicial District 15A's 4 district court judges. And whereas the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts reported in July 2022 that the 4 existing district court judges for Judicial District 15A had the highest workload among all judicial districts in the state, and that Judicial District 15A needed, at that time, 4.89 district court judges to effectively accomplish its work. Whereas the number of criminal, civil, child, and family court cases filed in Judicial District 15A's district courts continues to increase, thereby exceeding the number of cases that can be promptly and efficiently heard by the current number of district court judges. And whereas the number of attorneys in Alamance County available for court-appointed representation of defendants charged with serious crimes is precariously low, creating an unsustainable workload for attorneys willing to defend these individuals and increasing the risk for appeals. And whereas the Alamance County Board of Commissioners wish to ensure adequate representation of all individuals who face the deprivation of their liberty, to ensure efficient operation of the criminal courts, and to ensure that justice will be promptly served. Therefore, should the state see fit to fund a 5th District Court judge and a public defender's office, the Alamance County Board of Commissioners is hereby committed to providing adequate space to support the additional needed judge and public defender's office. Adopted this day, we fill in the date, and signed by Chairman John Paisley and attested by Clerk Tori Frank.
And if the resolution is approved, it'll have to be voted upon by this board. So that's before us at this point.
Right.
Before the meeting, handed out a letter from District Attorney Sean Boone. And so all 5 commissioners have that. Thomas, if you'd like a copy of that. And I'm not officially entering that into the minutes, but did want the public to know that we received a letter of support from Sean Boone asking for both the 5th District Court judge and the public defender's office. And it's a 2.5, almost 3-page letter. So, and that's available through the clerk's office. It was not in my possession in time for this meeting to be published. Mr. Turner.
Just a couple things, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think the need for a 5th District Court judge is self-explanatory. According to the Administrative Office of the Courts, we've got the highest workload for district court judges in the state. We're at the highest ratio of district court judges to work that exists. So I think that's a no-brainer that we ask the General Assembly to provide that. The Public Defender's Office, I think the primary issue there for the county is, well, first of all, the state pays for indigent defense now. So the same defendants who would qualify for indigent defense under the existing system would qualify for indigent defense under the system with the Public Defender's Office. The issue is efficiency, and the issue is workload for those attorneys willing to take serious high felony crimes. And just very few lawyers, I think 4 in the county who take those now. So I think that's needed to help beef up that group of attorneys, and also just to keep efficiency moving so that defendants get defendants moving through the process require both the prosecutor and the defense to work somewhat together to efficiently move those through the process. And if any one of those is not efficient, then defendants sit in the jail for an extended period of time, and we don't need that for a lot of reasons. So I think for the Public Defender's Office, that's my primary concern, and I think asking the General Assembly to help us with that is important.
Mr. Carr.
Well, I agree with what Craig just said, and I think, it's one thing to sit in jail if you're guilty of a crime. It's another to sit in jail when you can't afford to post your bail, and your attorney you can't get an attorney, or you can't get the attorney to show up and work with you, or because of scheduling issues. And I've been told that we have a number of people that have been incarcerated longer, in some cases, for waiting on a trial than they might have been if they'd been convicted. So That just needs to be fixed, and I hope this is an option we have that might fix it.
Mr. Lashley,
I have no questions, no statements.
Ms. Thompson.
Well, I would just like to thank you all for wanting a public defender's office because I've been talking about this for a long time. And I read in that about a public defender's office, you're gonna want a property to put it in. So see, it almost looks like you're gonna sell this public defender's office with your new courthouse. I'm taking it that way, because I know back in August when we went to the conference, and I met with Mary Pollard, and then she met me here at Village Cafe, and I asked Craig to meet us there, and she told us we were next on the list, because it is that important. My husband's practiced criminal defense for years and years, and it's a lot of people in there, but I just want to say this, if you're rich or poor and you commit a crime, I'm sorry, but you deserve jail. That's the way that is. I can't help your checkbook when you're stealing somebody else's stuff or you're raping somebody or hurting somebody in worse ways than that. But I don't, you know, oh my goodness. I am 100% for the public defender's office. It's a no-brainer because you need a level playing field. They need their own detective. They need their staff. They need, because defense attorneys are one-man shows, and it is a lot to run 150 plus cases on you all the time. I'm just, are you telling me that in order to get this public defender's office, you're gonna want that courthouse built to put it in? Is that buy one, get one free kind of thing? Is that what you're telling me? Because it reads that way. Because it is, what I just heard her read was about,
I can
help me, Craig.
I can answer
'cause I
that.
know
I mean,
this is your thing.
Well, I brought it up at the last meeting, and I specifically said at the last meeting that I think we need both of these, irrespective of whether we have a courthouse expansion. And I don't think that, I mean, I think the language is written broadly so that it doesn't imply that courthouse expansion is required to join this resolution. I think the timing doesn't have anything to do with courthouse expansion either, at least in my motivation. The timing, and we did have that meeting with Mary Pollard a while ago.
We saw
and
your mother.
Yes, yes. And she, yeah, and she did indicate that this was desired at the state level, but the reason for the timing is that it's not in the budget. It's not in the budget when the House created. And at this moment, the budget that the House created is moving to the Senate. And the Senate has an opportunity either to include this in the budget or not. And my thinking was that the timing of this allowed, our friends in the Senate to say, we got 5 Republicans, or we got 4 Republicans, or 3, however many people vote for it, on the board who want this. And the Republicans control the Senate and the House, and so our friends might say, this is a time when we can do that. That is the purpose of the resolution, that is the purpose of the timing of the resolution, and I think it ought to pass irrespective of what we do with the courthouse. Which obviously there are not 3 votes for, or that would have passed. So, I mean.
I'm just saying we just heard,
Yeah, I think, am I next?
I'm not done. So, I'm just saying that, I don't wanna have, it's like Solomon's baby sitting here, which mother you're gonna give the kid to, so to speak. I'm all about public defenders, cause I've been talking about this for a good while. And it's just as clear as a picture to me that we need this, for both sides of the aisle, so to speak. But, it just, I don't want to feel like I got to vote for this public defender's office because I'm going to get dragged into this courthouse deal. Because if Judge Judy or Perry Mason or Matlock come in here and talk about this courthouse, I'm not going to support it right now because of the taxes being uncertain. Everything is just a hot mess in this world. And I'm not going to vote to lay that kind of debt on citizens in my county. I'm just not. I'm not. So, but I'm going to support this public defender's office. And, I'll just have to be a big no on the other when it comes along, and I will be. And, that's not to hurt anybody's feelings or take anything away from Graham or our county seat or anything like that. I've told you the other day that I don't think it is the right time for us to go and spend that kind of money, because it's not like, when we take out a loan, we all pay for the loan. It's not my little coupon book that pays it. It's the whole county that pays for it. And we're paying so much now. We just wrote off over $1 million worth of debt that people can't afford to pay their ambulance. You know, it's just all, like Bill was talking about, that's a penny in taxes. So, I don't really, it doesn't matter. I'm done. So.
Okay, are you finished? If so.
I'm so
speak.
finished. I'm
Okay.
really finished.
Okay. One, Mr. Turner's dead on the money. The state and, state House and Senate, or was Senate's, House has already voted, the Senate's, got the bill up and coming. It is not in the current state budget, neither the fifth judge nor the public defender's office. And I think we as a county board have to show our resolve and ask that they add that back into the budget. If not, we have no chance, in my opinion. So I think the resolution is well worded, and I plan to vote for it. We do have individuals sitting in jail, and as a practicing attorney of soon to be 50 years, I know that people are sitting in jail awaiting trial because there aren't enough judges. We are the #1 county out of 100 counties for the appointment of an additional judge. Additionally, we are the #1 county, again, based upon workload and cases being handled, for the district attorney's office, and we don't have a public defender's office currently. Currently, we have really good lawyers trying to spread the load of what otherwise would be a public defender's caseload. These are cases that are court appointed. Mr. Thompson, Pam's husband, served and did a good job with that for many, many, many years. He is now retired, and we just don't have enough attorneys sitting out there that are willing to be on the court-appointed list to fill that desperate need. So I plan to vote for both. It's a resolution. We send it to the state. We'll send it to each of our representatives and spread it as far and wide as we can on the state level, asking for help. It's not up to us guys, it's up to the state representatives on a legislative basis. Any other comments?
Yeah, Craig will remember this. Miss Pollard was telling us that when these, if you're not retained, you can't make it doing all this kind of work, because she was telling us if you are a sole practitioner and you have a secretary, assistant, whatever, by the time you pay your rent, your lights, your fees, your bar dues, and your help, you make $16 an hour, and you can make more than that at Hobby Lobby. So folks go to law school, they work hard, and they do big, serious stuff. You have people's lives in your hands. And but we just have so much crime. I hope we can talk about, like with our drug addiction, how we can talk about real preventative measures to saturate our community and get out in it, instead of always the after, to where we're keep adding on for more and more crime. Because, I mean, we could buy them all, and we could fill it with all kinds of stuff, you know? So, and the jail, it's not gonna be big enough either. So nothing's big enough. And it's just scary how every year it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just keeps costing and costing and costing. And the very ones who make good decisions and do right by everything are the ones who has to pay for all this. And you know, it kind of sucks sometimes, so.
Any other comments?
Let me add to what Pam said. Pam, you're not alone on this board with people who are struggling over the cost of this, projected cost of this court building. I mean, it was a shock when we got the numbers, and a commitment like this is to provide space. It doesn't mean building a new building. I mean, maybe renting some space someplace, or maybe using the some of the space we already have when we finish relocating people out of the Board of Elections office into their new building. We can That's one option that I've looked at with our district attorney, and he thinks there's enough space in there, it need some modification, but there's enough space in there for it to be used for a defender's office. So, you know, we've got to find a way to take care of our citizens, and we've got to try, all of our citizens, the ones that are in jail, the ones that aren't, and do it as efficiently and cost effectively as we can.
Well, I do know Ms. Pollard said it's really important that a lot of times your public defender is also in the same building as your district attorney, because when they get their assignment in that courtroom, if they don't get them right then, you don't see them. And when you call, it's disconnected or there's no more minutes. So it's like, you know, trying to find that defendant that's just gotten his first court appearance, or her. It's really difficult to locate them sometimes.
You said in the same building as the DA's office?
A lot of courthouses have that. She highly recommended it. And she's over the public defender's office for the state. She probably knows what she's talking about.
Any other comments?
Motion to approve resolution?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Stevens, are you presenting the next item?
I am. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm back before you again this evening with some slight modifications to the ordinance I proposed a couple of weeks ago. I've gotten a lot of feedback, not only from you all, but from the community related to ways in which we might improve the language to make this a little more user-friendly and also to clarify the purpose of the ordinance that you've already reviewed. So what I'm going to do is take a few moments to point out some of the highlighted areas, and I learned from last time, and we have visual aids this time to help you. I have highlighted all the portions in the ordinance that I modified from the last time this was presented. So first, in section 1, I've added a statement here to clarify the purpose of the ordinance, in that it is not construed to prohibit the otherwise lawful possession or carry of any firearm. I got a lot of response, feedback from the community before about the fact that they wanted to make sure this wasn't dealing with possession or carry of firearms, and I clarified that in the ordinance. Mr. Turner also made some suggestions last time, and I think Mr. Lasser did as well, about possible redundancy in the language. So in section 4, I've also clarified and taken some portions out related to how a backstop has to be constructed, and simply said in section 4 that it is now unlawful for any person to discharge a firearm in any manner that causes or allows the projectile to leave the property on which it is discharged. And I'll remind the board that in any instance where this ordinance would be applied, there has to be a willful intent to violate the ordinance. So accidents aren't going to be encompassed by this. Accidents aren't criminal in nature. So just to make sure the public and the board is reminded of that. I also got feedback about the written permission that was in the original proposal, what that form would look like, and I've taken that and amended it to make it permissive but not required. So in an instance where a projectile might leave the property of the person who fires it, one way that person could defend against any sort of argument that they had violated the ordinance would be to say, hey, I've got permission from the person where the bullet landed, and by the way, here it is in writing, so here's my defense up front. Kind of to avoid overcharging and to give folks an option to be able to present that up front to officers. I didn't make any changes to section 5. I made one change to section 6 to include property controlled by a person. So this section and the ordinance now makes it unlawful for any person or entity to willfully allow another person on property owned, leased, or controlled by that person or entity to discharge a firearm in violation of the ordinance. The idea here is to make sure that others aren't allowing people onto their property to violate the ordinance. I know there's been a lot of feedback from the community about businesses potentially being encumbered by this. I want to make it clear that my intent is for no one to be charged with a violation. And I believe, based on how I've worded this, that any business that operates with any reasonable degree of caution and advising the same to their customers is not going to have any trouble coming into compliance with the ordinance. And I didn't make any changes to section 7 or 8. So based on that, I'll be happy to take questions from the board. I didn't feel the need to go back through it all. I just wanted to highlight changes unless you would like something different.
I would note that in section 4, it said previously shall obtain written permission, now says may obtain, and in the law, there's a major difference between the word may and shall. May is permissive, shall is mandated.
Correct. Yeah, that was one suggestion made by the board. If you recall, a few weeks ago, I think that made a lot of sense, so the wording has been changed to reflect that.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevens, did you do any research at the state level, local level, to see whether there are statutes or ordinances now which cover this activity?
I did actually, did some extensive research on that, both with my own search of our ordinances and also consulted the DEA to make sure that they didn't know of any law that would apply in an instance like this. There's not. Honestly, in my opinion, this is something that cries out for some level of statewide uniformity, because the things we're talking about here can be pretty severe in terms of the consequences if someone recklessly discharges a firearm, but there's just not. A lot of counties have an ordinance similar to this one, but there's no statewide statute that applies. Thank you.
Mr. Carter.
I had the same question earlier with Mr. Stevens, and I got the same answer before we got here today, so.
Ms. Thompson.
Well, I spoke with Rick earlier. You all know this is not my gift, but I've just, and I'll tell you what I told him. I said, none of this mentions noise.
Beg your pardon?
None of it mentions noise.
That's correct.
And that's why the folks had come in about the noise and the safety of it too. And I just wanted to make sure, I just want both parties to be okay with what this is, because that's important. We do have to live together. And I also don't want them in court all the time when somebody finds a shell casing. You know, they run the courthouse, whichever courthouse. So that's all. It's just, this is just a really hard situation. And I want people to be able to go, and I want people to be safe and be okay where they're living. Sometimes that's difficult.
Mr. Lashley.
I just wanted, Mr. Turner asked the question I was concerned about, and I just wanted to actually thank the parties involved here who got together to make some reconciliations to get this done, and I appreciate the corrections that you made in the document before we first started. I think you've addressed everything that I asked you to, and I just wanted to thank the owner of RAD for working with our sheriff to make a compromise, understanding that safety is your #1 goal, and I certainly believe that that's how you run your business. So that's basically all I have to say about this.
I agree with you there, Bill. In our last meeting, Rudy and the sheriff stepped out and moved a resolution. I thought that was fabulous, so.
There's no need for this.
Mr. Turner, one thing I just want to let you know, I just misspoke. I said DEA, I meant ATF. I was talking to DEA earlier today about something else, so ATF.
But there's nothing that they cover either.
No, no. That's all I have, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
I'm sorry, not at this point. There are clear criminal laws that prohibit criminal activities such as shooting in dwellings, shooting in vehicles, damaging someone else's property. That is not what this is. And they are covered by separate criminal penalties that are in our North Carolina general statutes. This is not a willful shooting that, someone trying to shoot at or injure someone. All that's covered separately under our North Carolina general statutes. I think this clarifies a lot, and I plan to vote for it. Any other discussion?
Just a question, Mr. Chairman, about what the procedure is. There are 2 readings or two, how do we do this?
We have 2 readings, and we would vote tonight on reading 1.
That's
and
correct.
then the next meeting, we vote again.
Okay.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. And just for clarification, that's because there's a penalty involved in
The
this.
financial penalty.
Yes, and also a misdemeanor charge as well.
Right. Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
This is the approval for the first reading.
That is
Right.
correct.
Correct.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous on the first reading. It is not law or an ordinance yet.
That's two of them.
I didn't do that one.
Well, I have been told to bring this closer, which means it's where my hands go sometimes.
Okay. All right, first reading passed. David Putnam, I think you have 5C.
Hello, David.
Hello, good evening, County Commissioners. I appreciate you making the time to fit this on the agenda. It's my pleasure to be here before you this evening. What I would like to do is just provide a brief presentation and respond to any questions you all might have. And the presentation will cover background history of the proposed project, and then kind of tail end what I'm asking of you all today for consideration. So. I guess to start, I should cover the title. This presentation is about the North Carolina Industrial Center. You might hear the acronym NCIC, that's what I'm referring to, and the transload rail facility that accompanies it. So some key points, or what I would like to call upshots about the transload rail facility. Planning began for this facility back in 2015, around the same time that we recruited Cambro, which is a manufacturer located in NCIC. The proposed kind of conception of a unit that would own, operate, and maintain the facility would be a new nonprofit, NCRR, NCIC Railroad would be that nonprofit's name. The overall intent of using the nonprofit approach would be to keep costs low to enhance access and utilization. So when you imagine that kind of swimming pool approach, it wouldn't be for that facility or the nonprofit that's managing it to make a buck. It would be to keep costs low so that more users could utilize the facility, access the facility, and make it so that it's a universally competitive asset and infrastructure piece for Alamance County. And then that leads to that other point, to add an added layer of competitive advantage to Alamance County's industrial growth and also just general growth. We truly envision this transload rail facility to be an asset that's going to spill over into multiple jurisdictions, other counties, and have a tremendous regional presence for Alamance County. So right there is the kind of the last bullet on this slide, talks about the total cost of this overall project. We're roughly at $3.2 million. We were successful in the fiscal year 21-22 budget to recruit $2.6 million from the General Assembly in the form of grant. And then also the kind of the gap financing of this project we're asking for you all to consider today, as well as the City of Medben's City Council for their consideration in early May. One last thing on this slide, you can see all the partners that have been involved in this process since 2015. So we do have you guys being a big partner in the recruitment of Cambro, which kind of got this conversation going, NCDOT, the State of North Carolina, City of Medben, the Chamber, Samet Corporation, North Carolina Railroad Company, and Norfolk Southern. So this is a very difficult image to see on the screen, but it is the engineering plans and outlines for the transload rail facility that we're proposing for you all to consider. The sum of this is really that there's two car docking stations within the transload facility, and then you have three kind of individual spurs that run off where you can store cars. So when you conceptualize this, you'll have a pretty seamless process where you're having kind of two storage lanes where industries and other users can take advantage of this asset and kind of get a queue going for the cars, or what we would call the rail cars. And then those excess cars that are going to be picked up later or need to be stored nearby, they'll be positioned further down the lane on this map, the westerly portion of that map, but you'll see that blue kind of spur that comes off. Yep. So that's really important to visualize when I go into this slide where we talk about how our products transloaded. You can see there's a bunch of different methods that folks can use to transload products from trucks, which is the intent of a transload facility, is to move products from a truck onto a rail car. The primary methods I've kind of highlighted here. What we're proposing is a forklift as the primary method to transfer the products onto rail cars from trucks, because I've underlined palletized right there. That's really the type of product that we envision being maneuvered here. Nothing that's like going to need giant vacuums or conveyor belts or pump transfers. You can see it's an exhaustive list. There's everything from beverages, oversized items, liquids, building supplies, and then this guide actually puts a thing at the bottom, just about everything else. You can move just about everything from a transload facility, because that's how we used to do things. That was the main method of maneuvering products across the U.S. But what I've circled is the primary areas that this site would accommodate. So that'd be household goods, foods, and small items. So that would open the door for, agriculture uses. That would open the door for various kind of household commodities that are being produced across Alamance County and beyond.
Textiles.
Yep, textiles. And so it's really a broad breadth. And then the small items could be things like sand, plastic pellets, resin, sodas, things like that. So over the years, we've really generated a lot of interest for this facility. And you can see just some of the industry examples I've offered you today: UPI, J-Bill, Ferrero Foods. You see a sign of NCIC, the North Carolina Industrial Center, and then photo credits of what we're really envisioning. So you can see the forklift there. Now that picture off to the right is pretty misleading. That's a little big. So just remember, we're talking about 2 of those lanes. That's it. So I struggled to find a comparable transload rail facility photo. You just don't get a lot of flyovers of those facilities. But if you imagine about 90% of that being eliminated, that's what we're talking about.
The bad news is 90% of it eliminated at a cost, right?
Well, I feel like we've got a really good valued engineer product. And, there's nothing stopping this from expanding in the future with that swimming pool approach.
Right.
Yeah. So I always like to wrap up the presentation of why I'm actually standing up here and sharing this information with you all. So what I'm asking for is you all to motion to account for approximately $300,000, or to the better tune of $300,843 for your capital projects in fiscal year 23-24 budget for the NCIC transload rail facility. And then I have additional notes there about the $2.6 million that was appropriated as a grant, the facility's location of where it would be located with a geopin, and a disclaimer that local funds would be split 50-50 and be the last resource utilized. So it could even be under the assumption that, maybe we don't spend the max budget. Maybe we find cost-efficient measures through the construction process and we don't use this full amount. And that would protect kind of these funds if you guys were to consider allocating them or accounting for them. I think is more appropriate. Protect them as the last resource used. And that this would be a reimbursement style construction process. So we would be working with the developer to do a pay application approach where they would have to provide evidence of, materials used, activities completed, what percentage of those materials are stored and beyond. So thank you all very much, and I'm happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Well, this is a one-time request, right?
That's correct.
And Sammit's building it.
Yeah, Samet would be a core development partner for this project.
Ms. Thompson, you're first.
I just asked it like Samet. That's all I wanted to know. They've got a good job.
So there's truly a lot of coordination that has to happen because it is rail too. So North Carolina Railroad owns the track, and then Norfolk Southern is the operator of that track. So all parties have to be consulted in the development of this product.
They build a good school, so I'm sure it'll be great.
Mr. Lashley.
I have no questions. Thanks for your presentation.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple quick questions. You talked about it being, the 2.6 million being a grant. It's an appropriation from the General Assembly, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the state's a partner, Mebane would be a partner, we would be a partner. Can you just get really simple? Why is it beneficial for, a manufacturer in Mebane to have access to a transload facility?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if I had a big county map, I'd show you that, the rail, which our county is pretty well known for, splits right through the middle of the county. And it follows very closely that interstate. Well, we have a lot of manufacturers that sit outside of that interstate corridor. And we have a lot of people that could utilize this asset that don't sit right on rail. It's very hard to get rail directly to your facility. So this would open up opportunities for manufacturers, farmers, everybody to utilize this product and have it available to them so that they could then have rail without paying NCRR, Norfolk Southern for a rail spur.
So you make a widget at your factory, you manufacture, in Mebane, and then you truck it to the transload, and then the rail takes it to Las Vegas.
That's right.
And then you don't have to have 17 trucks take your product to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So the cost efficiencies there?
Cost efficiencies there, decongestion issues on the interstate is there. I was talking to a food manufacturer the other day. They process about 80 trucks a day that they're sending from their small outfit operation.
Do you anticipate that this would be a draw for entities that are not in Alamance County to come because it's here?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two comparable products like this. One is in Winston-Salem. The other is in Fuquay-Varina. So you could envision this asset really pulling a crowd from Orange County, Chatham County, Randolph County, and even from Wake counties and Forsyth counties.
Right.
Because those two products are handling the bulk of demand for their surrounding counties as well as their own. Yeah.
All the folks, when we were out there, all those folks on that road, they all know about this.
Yeah.
Even the guy with all the flags on the other side of those trees.
Yeah.
Okay.
This project has been, we've been very engaging with the public through this process. We brought all the boards out there to see kind of the site. We advertised that opportunity as well. And this project, since it's been going on since 2015, has incurred a lot of attention from neighbors.
This is a big deal.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Also, what's the DOT improvement that comes as a result of approving this?
So DOT has considered a nearby location being paved to further take decongestion off of Lake Latham Road and Holt Road that sits right there.
Right.
And this is kind of a domino effect where the competitiveness of that opportunity, that project, is scored much, much higher with a transload facility. Because then you're having more products and trucks coming through there, and its competitiveness just skyrockets.
Mm-hmm.
If I had an operation selling whatever, tractors, lawnmowers,
Socks.
so forth, that sort, currently it would have to be transferred by rail typically to Fuquay-Varina or Winston-Salem.
That's correct.
If we build this facility, it'd be sent to Mebane, and the trucking would not be from Fuquay-Varina down our interstate and our private roads. It would be right from Mebane to the facility.
That's correct.
Therefore, many, many less tractor and trailers, less wear and tear on our roads, and just more efficiency for our local businesses, both receiving and shipping. Is that correct?
That's very correct.
All right. Mr. Carter?
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll see a lot of less as rapidly as we're growing. I'm just hoping maybe it'll hold it down a little bit, so as we grow, instead of getting more and more traffic, this will help level that out a little bit.
Mhm.
Well, we cut it out from Fuquay Varina to here, will it not?
Yep.
Yeah.
And from Winston-Salem to here. All right.
Motion to approve?
Any
Mr. Chairman,
other
I got one more question, Mr. Chairman. Does the facility have any refrigeration capabilities?
So there is a proposed, let's see, on that parcel, there's like a little line above the first, kind of spur there. That's, it's hard to describe. Yeah, see the little line that's above there?
Reagan, would you point that out, please?
Is it this one?
Yeah, like, there's a little line above there. So there's gonna be a, like an operating hut right there. And, yeah, like a hut. So there's not gonna be cold storage right now that's planned, but I say that because this can grow. And if the demand for cold storage is there, then we can use this. In fact, I have, one of the industries that I showed you before, has committed about 90 cars per year that they would use at this facility, that would have to be cold storage based. So.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Was that a second? All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Vanna over there in the corner, too.
Okay, county manager.
Good evening, Commissioners. Just a note on that previous item that David just shared with us, I will put that in your budget for next year. Under our economic development budget will be the $300,843. So that's where we'll fund that project, investment in infrastructure from there. I am back with you again tonight, bringing your CIP for the second time. So we introduced this to you at your April 3rd meeting, and tonight we are here to answer questions that you have, make any revisions or adjustments that you would like to make, and then ask for you to adopt the fiscal year 23-24 funding for your 5-year CIP. So although we're looking at projects that can span the next 5 years, we only allocate the funding on an annual basis, and we bring this plan back every year for adjustments to reprioritize needs and projects, those sort of things. So sort of a dynamic document that will be changing over the years, but it contains the needs for the county, for ABSS, and for ACC. And we are prepared to answer questions that you have so that we can hopefully move forward with adoption. This would be a commitment of spending that would help as we're building your recommended budget. This would give us a large chunk set aside. And we are hoping to move from overdue deferred maintenance needs to becoming a little more proactive to meet the growing needs of our facilities.
That's one of the things I saw in here that I liked was that similar to the way we're asking the school system to do it, let's the county take care of it too. The only item in here that I really have a concern about right now, I think, is this courthouse cost.
Sure.
And I've heard my fellow commissioners making comments about it. I feel like we need to get our budget under our belt and take a really hard look at what we need. I know we're gonna, if we get approved capital defenders or a public defender's office and an additional judge, we're going to need to provide space. We're already cramped for space as it is. So it's not a matter of do we need to do something, it's a matter of how much are we gonna spend. And I feel like I'm choking on $67 million. So.
Sure.
And I think the rest of my friends here on the dais are doing the same thing. I don't know, but.
Let me just clarify for you on the courthouse project. You find that on page 35 of the document, and the status of that project is listed as unfunded. So we are not committing to a courthouse project, but felt like we needed to make sure that's on your radar screen as we anticipate, excuse me, future needs that we would want to have, be aware of that. But this in no way commits you to funding a courthouse project at this time, nor any particular amount. It's simply a placeholder. And we just don't know where that's going. So I think I've heard from all of you that there's consensus to kind of put the courthouse project on hold, get through the budget process, see where the numbers shake out, and then revisit that project probably sometime this summer. So that's what we're planning for that one at this point in time.
Can I go? Because I know Bill's got, he's
Yes.
got money stuff too. I am not gonna steal your thunder, because I know you're going. I just have some random questions, and I know that you will know what this means, because I've looked at this whole thing and I wanna know what in the world is that for? And so that's what I'm gonna ask, because every number is at least 2.5 inches long. Okay. Are we taking over the Family Justice Center's budget?
What does that mean?
That means, like if they don't get the big grant, I was looking at their stuff, they've got some massive grants. I wanna know what Family Abuse Services is doing, because they handle shelter, the Justice Center does, because there is no shelter, so to speak. Is Family Abuse Services mainly doing restraining orders? Is that what their role? Because I work for them, they were everything. And then the Justice Center comes along, and there's a conglomerate of everything in there. It's like the mall for this, and it's perfect. And I'm just wondering about that. And let me just go ahead and ask some other questions, because this is good reading. Okay, I know Crossroads was $225,000. I remember that one. We did that for art money.
Are you talking about the operating budgets?
No, we gave them $225,000 art money the first
Okay.
year I was on the commissioners last year. Got that, because they had lost their grants. They lost a lot of their funding through the Government's Crime Commission and stuff. This emergency equipment project, $800,000, what is that?
So that was a state allocation that we received through the General Assembly budget this past year.
Okay.
And what we were able to do is allow fire districts to get revenue for that. If you remember, that was brought before the board, and we were able to give them general fund dollars for that, because we were able to use those funds for expenses that the county had. That was a blessing of the state,
Okay.
and that allowed them to get equipment that they needed.
Great. The diversion center project, $500,000, what is that 500,000?
So that again is through the state appropriation. It was called through the SCIF grants. And that was to go toward the diversion center. Those funds have not been spent as of yet.
Okay. The sheriff's safety project, $84,270.
Again, that was SCIF funding.
Okay.
And that was to cover, equipment that they've had.
All right, the opioid settlement fund, $8,874,733. Do we have that left?
We have not made any expenses out of those funds.
That's great. Good, thank you. Board of Elections, what is $1 million gonna do for that building? Because I know we paid $675, 7 something for it, and we're remodeling it. We're not building it all over again. So what is $1 million? That's a beautiful building. What are we doing for $1 million? I know you said it's gonna be closing in the drive-through.
Right, I will have to defer that to Sherry or Brian to answer those complete plans for that building. I know there are renovations that are taking place there.
Is it being gutted, the whole thing on the inside?
So half of that building is being gutted, and then there's gonna be the, I guess you'd call it an addition where we're closing in that drive-in. That piece of closing that in was kind of expensive, but the second floor will probably kind of remain untouched. There's a little bit of construction up there, not much. but the first floor, there's a lot of construction.
But the whole point was to get everything out of rental spaces
That's the
to store it in one thing.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
still the plan.
Okay, the elderly services building, that's where the Friendship Day Center was for years.
That's
Is
right.
this, I thought I read where it may be possibly the planning board's place and inspections one day. So $3 million to remodel that place.
It's more than remodeling, so there's mold abatement issues, it's not ADA accessible,
Mhm.
there's a roof that is leaking. So we're asking for us to make an investment in that building if we wanna keep it, and the use could be determined down the road.
Okay.
We don't have that currently funded in your plan, that was
I
just
see
too
it
big of a
couple-
ticket
okay.
for us to include for the
And
upcoming
the-
fiscal year.
On the page 40, safety assessment for ABSS, $1,218,000. What is that for? Is that cameras? Is that security? Is that vestibules? What all is that? It's on page 40.
We have a different page number, I think, than the online version versus the
I'm sorry.
hard copy. It's okay, I can pull it up.
I'm looking at somebody that could probably tell me.
Let me pull up the digital copy. I think that's the page 40.
You say page 40, I've got EMS on page 40, but
It's under ABSS.
Okay. Yeah, I still have EMS on that one. I did see that in here. Let's see. So page 10 and then pages 12 and 13 contain ABSS projects.
I don't have that book.
What's the
No,
topic?
it's okay.
Commissioner
It
Thompson,
says
what's the topic?
Safety,
and security.
safety and secure,
Yeah.
security. $1.2 million.
And you're just wanting a clarification
I'm
of
just
what that
wondering what it's
contains.
for. Yeah.
Oh,
Do you know?
it's in the 5-year PAYGO. It's on page 10 of the hard copy.
My hard copies.
5-year PAYGO plan, 22-23, safety and security. 1.2 million in the first year, then 1.4, and then going down after that.
Okay, okay. The prison annex, are we still using the prison annex?
Yes, we are.
We are, we have actual guys and not girls, because I've done several interviews over there. It's not real pleasant.
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna put a roof on there for $125,000,
That's correct.
okay? And then we're gonna, the old jail chiller is like $232,204. That's the one on this side, right? Okay. And somewhere in all that, I noticed that 3 ball fields were gonna be done. And AOM, Holt, and Beaver Jordan, $1 million a piece. Are the Yankees gonna be there? I mean, what is that, Brian, you can tell me, I know we're talking lights, bleachers, bathrooms, Beaver Jordan, that's awful.
Yeah, unfortunately, Beaver Jordan in particular, which would be the first stop, is, needs a new everything.
Yeah.
Never had any investment there.
I played ball though, that's how old it is.
Well, it hadn't changed,
Yeah.
nostalgic at this point, but
Vintage.
the shelter needs to be replaced, the storage, the bathrooms, the concession stand, the field lights, most of the fencing needs to be replaced, the bleachers are concrete
Yeah.
and breaking, so our priorities for these funds are the lights and the buildings with the restroom concession in there. I think those are gonna be our top 2 priorities, but we should be able to do more with these funds and give it a complete overhaul.
So this is art money, right? This
It is not.
Okay. Art money couldn't have done this.
Well, we've designated the ARP funds for other projects.
Okay. All right.
But this was one of the priorities that continued to rise up during your board retreat.
I know, I
And
was mean,
so
I know.
we're sort of at a place where we need to make a decision. Do we want to make an investment in these athletic fields?
I
We
hope
don't
so,
own them.
because rural community pays property taxes also.
Yes.
Open door clinic, this isn't the Petrie building, is it, that just got built?
It is not. no.
Okay,
And
thank
that's in next year, that's the fiscal year 24-25.
Okay.
Start.
Now, I'm not gonna hurt your feelings, but I gotta ask this question. Cedar Rock Historical Post Office, $300,000. What are you doing to that building?
help
Are
it-
they gonna get mail there?
We're gonna help it stand up, I think is the long-term goal. So that is, one-story building, most of the way back to the park on your left before you
Mhm.
get to the park office. That was the post office in 1896. We haven't received mail there recently. But it is pretty literally falling down, so it's on the National Historic Register. We feel like we need to make a commitment to
Okay.
maintaining it.
Okay, this is shock and awe. I'm so sorry. The old and new jail chiller replacement, 232 and 220. That's the heating and air, right? Okay, in the old jail. All right, the sheriff's storage building and the landfill and the old maintenance building, a roof, 84,000. Where, that's at the landfill, because it says coating only. But that's like a 2025, I'm just curious. I'm just, see these numbers, I'm just asking
Right,
where
so
we're
they're
headed.
bundling those two projects together to meet the $50,000 threshold to be
Okay.
included in the CIP.
Okay, in the old jail, is this the annex, they're talking about the replacement ceiling for 625? Or 62,500, is that the new jail, is that the jail across the street, or is that the jail annex?
It's the jail across the street.
Okay, cause when it leaks a lot, when they stop up the toilets, okay, gotcha. This blue modular, I guess is that a DSS?
That's right. in the
That's like
parking
a
lot.
double wide on a school
Correct.
ground, I love those things, yeah. $84,000, okay,
So it's two projects, it's the chiller house and the blue modular
Okay.
roof replacements on both.
okay. Can somebody help me understand what we're gonna do to this building for $4,860? That says, civil court and county office renovation.
Right. So that's not a project that is ripe or ready for fruition at this
Yeah.
point. There's been some conversation in years past about needing to update this building once we move civil courts out. How could we better utilize that space downstairs with the courtroom? So it's some of those type issues. I don't know that I've seen a plan since I've been here for that, but again, that's an unfunded project that is contingent upon the courthouse project.
Okay, I just have to ask because we have groups that come here all the time. It's just constant, I need funding, and then I see even bigger numbers from same groups on these things, and I got a ballpark. Thank you. I appreciate that. People in Sykes Hall will really appreciate being able to take their families to that ball field and watch your youngins run on that field. There's nothing better than families gather together, and I think that's really important. That's right up there with everything else, so. Thank y'all for me putting you on the spot.
Thank you.
I know it's always up here, knows all the numbers, so,
Not really.
yes, really.
Anything else?
No, I think I got it.
All right, Mr. Lashley.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify, everything that Ms. Thompson just reeled off to you is what you're encompassing for the whole entire 5-year period.
Yes,
So I was thinking, there's no way we can get all that done.
that is beyond the capacity for next year.
Right. Okay, and you're looking for $2.3 million for the budget upcoming, correct?
That is correct, for the county portion.
Yep. Just want to focus in on that particular number, because I just want to ask you, and maybe Ms. Evans can help out as well here. Going back to the 8 cent moniker when the bond projects were getting started, is there, there's no way we can use that .96 of a penny on any of these things?
Yes, we would use that,
Okay,
that's part
that-
of that.
Okay, I'm getting 1.96, I'm just basing it on 1.6, gives me 1.53 million. Is the 2.3 in an addition to this? It's not.
The 2.3 is the total that we would need.
So I could subtract 1.5 from that, and that's how much my budget's gonna increase by like roughly 800,000, 36,000?
The penny is not 1.5, is it?
No, I'm sorry,
He's
I won't.
calculating out the thing. Let me look at one thing.
Yeah, I'm just taking .96 and multiply it by 1.6 million
Gotcha.
and get 1.536. million. And I was just curious if the 2.3 that you're asking,
Yes.
am I subtracting the 1.53 from it, and my addition is gonna be roughly $836,000? So,
Yes, yes. There is a portion of debt service, in the amount of 200,000 that would come out of that figure, because we would definitely have to make that, debt service requirement, but the remaining would be applied for these funds.
okay, so we're looking at roughly $1 million increase. Okay, I'm just making a list of all the things that we've already paid,
Yes.
yet we haven't gotten any tax money. I'm just keeping a list of that. I wanna make sure we don't go too far too fast in that
Agreed.
direction. Getting to what Ms. Thompson brought up about the ball fields, I just wanted to ask Brian. I see there's $1 million every year for the next 3 years going forward. Would you break that $1 million off and just for example here, would you use 1/3 for AO, 1/3 for EM Holt, 1/3 for B. Everett Jordan, or would you do the one that has the most need first?
So our plan is to do a field at a time, just completely refurbish one field. If we get there and there's significant cost savings to buying all the lights at once, for example, we'll talk to the vendors about that. I don't anticipate that. I anticipate us being able to refurbish one field at a time, move some of the games that might be on another field while we're refurbishing it, and be able to handle the capacity for the games.
Well, this is a big spend for the Parks and Rec, just because I don't have numbers in front of me, but I'm thinking the Parks and Rec's budget is right about 1.85 million a year.
It's close, yep.
So this would be a really big injection to the Parks and Recs. And I do believe, I've actually been to all 3 of these fields. My niece and nephew play on these fields. I have a lot of people in that particular community who've reached out to me to say, hey, look, what are you gonna do about that field at AO? So I'm glad we're focusing on it. I just want to sort of like maybe, can we do it for less than $3 million? Over 3 years. Just to let you know that I had put some money in my budget for this, but I didn't get anywhere close to $1 million. I got 350. So I think it was something we could talk about, because I think it definitely needs to be done. I know the folks that live out in that community are looking for, and I think it would be used more if it was in better shape, to be honest with you.
We have some rough cost estimates we can share.
Yeah, we do, and I've got a rough breakdown of where those funds would be. So restroom and a concession building that are combined, if we're looking at something prefab, which is probably the cheapest way to do that, that's gonna be close to $400,000 just by itself. The field lights are about 225 per field. The shelter is somewhere between $90,000 and $100,000. And then also looking at the demolition of existing buildings, fixing the fences, fixing the press boxes, and some contingency in there. So can we do it cheaper? Maybe. We didn't want to make this big push and then run out of money to not get this done. But they need a significant amount of investment, and it's going to be pretty close to that to refurbish it.
Thank you. I did have another question, but that's why I need to write things down, because I didn't know it. I can't remember things. Oh, yes, thank you. The safety issues that we're dealing with the ABSS. This is one of the high priority things as far as I'm concerned. And I really hope, and I'm looking forward to the school system knocking out the things that we were talking about last time for the safety for the schools. That's really important. And at some point when these things get taken care of, I can speak for myself. I can't speak for anybody else in this board, but I certainly would like to go and tour after it's been done. Because I have a lot of folks in the community who are really applauding the fact that Alamance County is one of the only places in the state that has SROs in all the schools. I'd like to keep that up, making sure that we're the safest school system in the state. Actually, the country would be good for me. But that's all the questions.
we were the number one, as announced on Fox News, the only school district in the entire country with an SRO in every school.
And I certainly like to build on that. Certainly would.
Well, maybe we can get back on that bus that we went on, we all went on when we went to see the before, and now we can see the after. And,
Okay, Mr. Thompson, Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He does it
swear we're cousins.
Just don't call me late for dinner. A couple lines of questioning. The first is the staying with the fields. I mean, I'm looking at over 5 years, the total amount for the ask is, for identified projects is 7.4 million. The fields are 3 million of that, that's about 40%. What do we currently use, what does the county use, AO, EM Holt, and B. Everett Jordan for?
So we use this for football and baseball. We have basketball games there as well, but those are in the gyms, so outside of the scope of this request. This is for the fields that are baseball.
County youth athletics?
Yeah, exclusively, yeah.
Okay. Why these particular fields?
So they're our most popular fields because they're well positioned. So we in the county geographically. So we have other fields that we've used over time at churches, at various community centers. I think we've realized that to maintain all of the fields we've historically used is a bridge too far. So we are consolidating into 4 locations, one in each corner of the county, to try and give us adequate coverage of the whole county. So that's why we've chosen these. They're spread out across the county. We're taking off some schools that we've traditionally used, like Sylvan Elementary. We're moving out of that facility just to keep the costs as low as we can.
Is the thinking that if we improve these facilities, then more kids would use our athletic program?
That's certainly a hope. I mean, at this point, it's a little beyond, the quality of those fields is a little beyond trying to attract kids. They're unsafe on some level, some of the schools. So we are not holding games or practices at all at B. Everett Jordan right now because it's just not adequate to have kids there. So we got to get that base threshold first, so let's make it safe. But I do think if we invest heavily in these facilities, we'll see more kids come out and participate. We should be able to host a wider variety of things there, do some other sports that we can't do right now.
A lot of kids in the cities go to the municipalities' programs. Is there any interaction between those programs?
Absolutely. We've got a great relationship with the cities. So if the cities, each individual city has its own enough kids to make a league in a particular sport, they'll do that, and we won't cross with them. We'll just play with county kids. But if older U13 girls softball, for example, rarely has enough for one municipality or for the county to make a league by itself. So we combine those leagues, so make sure they have a.
So if you live down there, B. Everett Jordan, you could practice down there, and then if you're joined with the city, then maybe play in a city facility or something like that.
You'll be able to play, and you'll have an away game, and you'll have to drive to that. But the alternative is if we don't invest in these facilities, then we're asking kids who live in the northern and southern part of the county to drive into Burlington 2-3 nights a week to play, and a lot of them can't do it.
If we improve these facilities, I mean, all of these facilities are located at schools.
Right.
Is there any connection with the school system in terms of after-school leagues or keeping kids at school involved in athletic events where we're not now, and would improving these fields help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of a separate initiative that we're trying to do is to integrate youth athletics into the after-school programs at schools. It's very important just because the traditional model that we have of practicing on weeknights, playing on weekends is great if you have transportation, if you have coverage, enough grown-ups in that child's life to make all the driving, to make it all work out on a Tuesday night, in addition to feeding your kids and doing homework and everything else. That's just not reality for a lot of parents, and those kids are missing out on opportunities to be healthy and to get all the benefits that youth sports provides. So we're trying to integrate youth athletics into the after-school to include those kids. These facilities would be dual use. That's the advantage of them being at the schools. They could be used during the after-school period by that set of kids, used in the evening by kids in the traditional model.
Okay. The other kind of line of questioning is related to when you get to years 4 and 5, there are just not many asks.
That's
So it's front-loaded, first 3 years, 2.3, and then falls down, you know, basically 450,000, 290. If we really need, if we really have that many needs, why aren't we populating that request?
So this is a 5-year plan funded on an annual basis. There's capacity as we go on over time, because needs will arise as we go further down the line. So this just allows us to make this a plan that changes with the priorities and the needs. We anticipate that there'll be new projects, there'll be new needs, there'll be different priorities, and those years will fill in as we go.
Do you have a sense generally of the 2.3 number and how that compares with other counties in terms of them maintaining
Sure.
their buildings?
Yeah, so we talked earlier that 2.3 was less than the commitment that some of our neighbors make on their capital plans, like Person County. They're actually spending a little more on capital annually. So it's really just a question of priorities for this board in terms of how you want to support your infrastructure and needs going forward. I mean, I think we saw recently we had a $90,000 emergency need at our environmental health services because we fell through the floor there, because that building hadn't been maintained, much like the elderly services building. So this is just trying to get us to a place where we're able to proactively take some of that deferred maintenance, plan for it over time, hopefully save money over time so we don't have to come ask for $90,000 in one fell swoop.
Mr. Carter.
Well, I think it's a great idea, doing first of all, just coming up with a project, just like we've asked our school system to do just a few minutes ago. If they need to do it, we certainly need to do it, and determine what those needs are. And you know, the sad part is it's probably not a comprehensive list of the things that we need to do. It's a good first pass, I think, and I'm thinking we can find more.
We'll fine tune this over time.
It's sunrise. Been here all night.
I'm not sure what that meant. But
We're on the farm.
Was that you?
Henry?
You got a chicken in your hip pocket out there, Henry? Or did you lay one right there? Which one is it? The Eggman himself. Okay. I'm done.
All right. All three of these projects with the school funding and so on goes to the school facility for improving their fields, correct?
You're talking about the athletic facilities?
The three, right.
Right, so those are owned by the school.
Correct.
We would maintain them and make the investment in them.
And currently, we have a really, really good working relationship with ABSS, and they're allowing us to use their fields, correct?
That is correct.
But we need to make the public know that we're spending this money on school facilities at the same time. So, Dr. Butler, we want you to assure us that you're gonna continue to help us out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Butler.
Any other discussion?
Just to add on, when Craig was asking questions, Dr. Thorpe and I, in 2020, had come down to you at Cedar Rock to talk about this after-school programs to offer kids things that they probably wouldn't be able to get involved in anyway, so that they're there and it's part of their after-school. And it was just very important because a lot of children don't get the opportunity to do what some of us always just do. It's just not part of their normal thing. And getting kids moving, exercising around great role models is the most important thing. And like what you just said, John, about the school property, you know, children are all of ours. They're all of ours. I don't care if they're Alamance County government or Arlington City government or ABSS or whatever. They are all of our children, and we're supposed to make sure they're safe. That's why we have seen some really horrendous things on the news lately when it comes to that and all this safety with all the schools. You know, you don't want to think about that, but you just do. My daughter's a teacher, and she was telling me on the way back from Raleigh Saturday night, she said she teaches elementary school, 3rd grade for 5 years, and now she's AIG, and she said, I never thought that I would have 2nd and 3rd graders to say, now Miss Herring, if a shooter comes in the building, what are we supposed to do? Now Miss Herring, you know, because I talked about this in church Sunday, and I thought, you know, she never thought she'd hear stuff like that. Never, ever, because kids don't even need to be thinking that kind of stuff. But that is the really sinful world that we live in. And it is a presence of evil like I've never seen. And I'm old. And so, but I just want us to always look at our kids are all of ours. And we need to be there for each other and be there for the children. And whatever we can do to add to their life so that they'll be great leaders one day, I think we need to do it. So, thank you.
Now, as I understand, we're voting on the 5-year plan, but we're only locked in for the first year.
Right, we're asking for you to adopt the plan with the allocation of your fiscal year 23-24 funding only. We'll be bringing this back at the same time next year for review of new projects, new allocation, and the funding for that upcoming fiscal year at that time. So just 1 year at a time for the funding approval and adoption of the plan as the concept.
And I might indicate, just to the general public, the county manager and I and the school board chair and the superintendent met one day last week. And they are, as I understand it, developing their own 5-year plan, which they will present to us in the near future. Is that correct?
We will present it to the board next week and then to you after that.
Thank you.
My board.
So they're doing the same thing that we're doing on a 5-year plan. Just want the general public to be aware of that. Any other discussion? Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve. Sorry,
That's
Pam.
okay, I'll second yours.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Chair, the board chair, you can decide who made the motion and who didn't.
I will second.
Okay. I thought that was funny. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
See, we, guys out in TV land, we really do work. We go through all this stuff. Okay. County Attorney's report.
Nothing else from me tonight. Thank you, Board.
I like that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. You do a really good job. No, I mean that. I really appreciate it because I come to you and you see me on the sidewalk. It's like, no! And it's always about something and you haven't run away from me yet. I really appreciate it.
And I won't, thank you.
Well, you do a great job. We're very blessed to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, County Manager 8A
Yes.
and B.
I have 2 reports in your packet, nothing out of the ordinary. These are satisfying the requirements of the fiscal policies to include your investment report and then the quarterly management report.
Anything further?
I did have one further thing, if you'll indulge me. I'd like to introduce you to our new Parks and Recreation Director. Miss Jamie Merkel is with us here in the audience. Jamie has been with us a week and a day, I think. So we are enjoying adding her to the team. We think she's going to be a great addition here to Alamance County government.
You go by Brian, is that, she's not listening.
Does she go by?
I was asking her, do you go by Brian?
Yeah,
Is it Beck?
yeah. I answer to Brian too.
Okay.
He doesn't want to be associated with me.
Okay. Welcome aboard. We look forward to wonderful things.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Nothing else, thank you.
All right. Pam, you want to start?
I'm done.
Mr. Lashley?
Hold on a second, I'm looking for my notes. I got some questions about, I got some questions about the interest earned.
Yes.
Okay.
Look how y'all get all perky talking about
I
stuff. I don't even understand the thrill
If
of
it was if it was English, I'd probably shut away, stay away from it. I just wanted to ask that the thing that this what you sent me is all based on from July 1st of 2022 to the end of 2022. So that 6-month period, 7/22 to 12/22.
That's correct.
Okay.
This report is from July 1 through December 31st, 2022, so the
Okay.
first 6 months of the year.
I think, first of all, I want to say I think you did a good job with what you had in front of you because I went back and looked at how some of the things that you did early in the year in 2022. Wow, getting less than 1%, and now they're handing you 5.
I know.
So I think that's good, and to keep that up. But I just wanted to just ask you again because I couldn't quite remember, and I just wanted. It seems like from your list, it looks like you're putting in about $2 million per organization. Is that roughly about right?
That's roughly about right. So what I do is look at what we have that is maturing, as well as any excess cash that we have on hand. Sometimes I'm splitting investments between purchasing a commercial paper and then moving those funds to the North Carolina Capital Management Trust. By moving the funds to the Capital Management Trust, it keeps it liquid, so that if we were to have an emergency arise, then we can pull those funds down, but trying to maximize our interest earnings as much as we can throughout this year.
That's what I was going to ask you. If you some of these companies, do you have like a penalty? Do you have to pay if you? That's even awesome. That's what I wanted to hear. Let me just see if I can find my notes real quick. If not, I'll ask you later. Oh, I saw something on First Horizon Bank, and I see that you, them and Truist Bank is the ones I wanted to. Do you have majority of your CDs in those two organizations?
Yes.
Can you tell me something about Truist Bank? I mean, why you use them?
Historically, that's where that one had been purchased.
Okay.
It's one of those investments that I inherited.
Gotcha.
We don't keep a lot in CD.
That's what I
And a
was-
lot of times with CDs, there were special purposes when they were invested. So historically, we have just left those in the branch of where they were first invested.
Do you know if it comes due soon? It's not a lot of money compared
It's
to what.
not a
what-
lot of money. The First Horizon one, actually, we cashed that one in because when we went to reinvest that one, they did not have a mechanism that was approved by the LGC for us to reinvest in. So I did have to end up cashing that one out, and I'm seeking other investment options right now for that one. For Truist, I believe that one will renew again in, I wanna say November,
This coming November?
but I will double check that.
No
I don't
worries.
have that number right in front of me.
No worries. Thank you.
Did you notice that you get taller?
Will you shop those when they become
You just,
Yes.
oh, I'm not kidding.
real anything else?
I don't, thank you, sir.
Mr. Turner?
Let me get this stuff.
You did.
Mr.
You
Harvey?
just,
I did want to address a couple of things that were raised during the public comments period. And one was a comment about doubling taxes. Increasing the property value rate does not necessarily imply, and in this situation will not, I'm 100% confident, will not imply doubling your taxes. The tax rate is what determines what you pay in taxes, not the value. And we're looking, and we're committed to trying to approximate a revenue-neutral tax rate, which should keep your taxes at about the same. Now, the question then becomes, how much has your property value increased relative to the rest of the mix? And you should take a look at that, and if you haven't already filed an appeal, you should have filed an appeal if it's in excess of about, the number I'm hearing now is closer, it's gone up above 75, maybe to about 76, is that right?
Mine went
76?
from 65 to 135, but I will want to say one thing.
Talking about the average,
Justification.
talking about the
I'm hearing
average.
it. I did.
The average is gonna approximate about a 76% increase across the county.
Right. as the
So if your average, if yours is above that average, then I would encourage you definitely to file an appeal. And,
Well, mobile homes don't appreciate, first of all. They don't. And it's 2008. But the one thing I do want
This
to.
is, I'm sorry, this is not a question and answer
Right.
period. This is county commissioner comment periods.
Right, I'm sorry.
right, I just, in general, to the population, take the time to file an appeal if you think it's gonna definitely impact your tax rate or your personal taxes. Drag queen events, definitely opposed, and we've stood against them in the past, and I think as a group, we stand against them today. And I don't think we're gonna see those events happen in our public libraries, so.
The one I spoke of was actually a school, sorry.
Ambulance bills and the charge of ambulance bills predates our discussions of the court state. Ambulance bills, we've been dealing with that ever since I've been on the board. Been in a number of meetings years before I was on the board. We've dealt with it for years. It's one of those things that, it is what it is. You have to charge off a certain amount and you just can't collect them if people aren't gonna pay and don't have any capacity. I mean, if there's nothing to go after, you can't go after it.
You can't never not let somebody go
That's
to the
right.
hospital.
And that's the other issue there. I mean, we can't drive up to somebody and say, can you pay to go to the hospital? If they can't, we can't turn them down.
That's right.
We've got to take care of our citizens. We've got some citizens who can't afford to pay. So,
Anything else?
that's it.
If the drag queen thing, and I'm not sure I totally understood, and I'm not asking for a comment, but if it's in the schools, you need to address the gentleman that's right across the aisle from you, or the board chair who's sitting on the back row. But I don't think that's in the schools. I'd be shocked if it was. And nobody on this board, as far as I know, would support such an activity. As far as the taxes are concerned, one, we county commissioners did set when it's gonna be appraised. We did do that, and we did it not because I've heard on the radio and all kinds of places and accusations that we picked the highest rate possible and determined that because it was gonna be the highest rate in the entire history of the world. I'm exaggerating there slightly, but not much. Obviously, that was not the case. We picked that date and shortened it from the 8 years because we were paying substantial penalties in your tax dollars back to the state of North Carolina going to the utilities. That's why we did it at that point. We had no way of knowing that that was gonna be the highest or the lowest or anything else. Unfortunately, the inflation rate is continuing, and it's just staggering what's happening to inflation. So I anticipate possibly housing costs continuing to rise. I hope that's not the case, but unfortunately, it looks like that's gonna be the case. We did not do anything about the assessed tax rate, or the assessed rates. We county commissioners, none of us are on the board of adjustment. We simply picked the date for the appraised value. Now, we do, and we five do control the tax rate. And that's what Mr. Carter was referring to as revenue neutral. So we hope that we bring the tax rate down from 65 cents per hundred to 42, 43, somewhere in that nature. And we have not done that yet, and that will be done. We'll talk about it at our first meeting in June, and then we've got to lock into it at our second meeting in June, because it has to be passed before June 30 of each and every year. So that tax rate, you'll know relatively soon. I would encourage taxpayers to look at their appraised value, then multiply it, or divide it by 100, multiply it by 0.42 or 0.43, and that may, and I did not say will or shall, that may give you a pretty close estimate as to what your tax bill will likely be. And then compare it to last year's. We had not had an appraisal in many, many years, and we were way out of alignment with the entire state, which is why we were being penalized. I've heard additional comments, particularly on the radio and some other things in publication, pointing out to me that I picked the highest rate it could ever be, highest appraised value. That's not true. And that this revenue neutral thing is a scam. That's not true either. We county commissioners want it to be fair to everyone. And as one of the other commissioners previously pointed out, if your property, if you've made improvements to it, our tax department picks up on permits and all kinds of things, and so that would be possibly an adjustment. With mobile homes, I can't address that really because I agree, typically, those values would go down, but the land values would not go down. And so that's an unknown variable that I cannot address. There are all kinds of issues that are on this. We're trying to be fair to our tax citizens, and all of us are taxpayers, and I suspect most, if not all of you guys, are taxpayers. We want it to be fair. We've got to fund your needs and services, and that's why you pay taxes in the first place. That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Mr. Thompson.
Have a motion to adjourn, a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye and leave.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you for watching the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting. Commissioner meetings typically occur on the first and third Monday of each month in the Commissioners' Chambers at the County Office Building at 124 West Elm Street in Graham. The first Monday meeting begins at 9:30 a.m. and the third Monday meeting begins at 6:30 p.m. Changes to the meeting schedule will be posted on the county website at www.alamance-nc.com. The video of this meeting will be broadcast on LocalGov TV. Please go to www.localgovtvnc.com for more information about their schedule and to see more videos produced by your local governments. You can also access this meeting through our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/Alamance County NC or by clicking the YouTube link on the county website. Technical questions regarding this meeting's broadcast or production may be sent to our county webmaster at webmaster@alamance-nc.com. This address is for technical questions only. Comments and questions about the content of this meeting may be made to the commissioners themselves. You can find their contact information at the Alamance County website at www.alamance-nc.com. There, you can click on the link that says County Commissioners to learn more about the commissioners, read minutes and agendas of commissioner meetings, and find other information about the County Commissioners. You can also send mail correspondence to County Commissioners, 124 West Elm Street, Graham, North Carolina 27253. Again, thank you for tuning in to the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local government.